Hi, and on today's video we're going to cover off how to add storage to the Proxmox hypervisor. Now what I'm doing is I'm not passing it through to a VM. What I'm doing is making it available to Proxmox to use for VM storage, whether it be ISO images, containers, VMs, etc. Now I'm going to do this using a NVMe hosted on a PCIe card. So basically I'm just going to add that in. Now what I could do is, if I was using something that was under 2 terabytes, I could just use Fdisk. So many years ago people have been used to using Fdisk. However, because of the complexity around some of the sizes, once it gets above 2 terabytes, Fdisk is no longer compatible. So these days we generally use parted instead. So this guide will follow the parted method because it gives you the most flexibility. Now I'm only passing through a 500 gig NVMe. However, this guide will work for anything that you happen to use. So stay tuned. Right, so adding storage into Proxmox. So there's many ways you can do this, and I would strongly suggest, where possible, you're either passing this through as a complete software RAID, so i.e. you're letting Proxmox manage it, or you're doing it as TrueNAS and let TrueNAS manage it. Now, what I'm going to be doing in this video is basically just adding in one particular drive, because I need a drive outside of my boot partition because it's just on something really slow, not ideal. So I'm going to basically set this up to enable myself to use TrueNAS. Now, there's a couple of ways I could go about doing this. I could fully do it in the UI, but where's the fun and excitement in that, really? You know, it's not the highest point of my life, is it? So if we just do a quick look on the disks, these are all the disks that are listed in this device at present. So if we look where we are, I've got a 500 gig device here, which is listed, and then one PNY device as well up here. Not sure why I haven't got two. I should have two. I'll have to look at that a little bit later. But this is the one I'm particularly after at the moment, because I want to add this as... Oh no, there's the other one. Ignore me, potentially. Not sure. I'll have to look at that later. But that's the one I want to add today. So this Evo 500, which is currently running in a PCIe slot. So to do that, what I'm going to do is, I know the number there just by looking this way. There's other ways I could do it though. So if I go into the shell and just type lsblk, sorry, ls. Yes, it's blk all one word, isn't it? lsblk, that will give me the list of all the drives attached to my system at this current point in time. So I can see there, the one I'm after is this NVMe drive here. I'm not sure why the other one hasn't appeared. Okay, look at that a bit later. What I now need to do is basically run a couple of commands. Usually to use parted is probably the best solution. If you're going to do it and it's under 2 terabytes, there's another way. You can use Fdisk and do it that way, but you know, realistically these days the likelihood is you're going to go over that kind of threshold. So what I'm going to do is install parted, and then just add a Y just to confirm. So that will go off and do it. So that's just doing the yes for us rather than me typing it out manually. Okay, now what we're going to now do is basically add the device and give it a name. So we know we're looking for NVMe 1N1. So what we're going to do is run the following: parted dev, and on mine it will be ME 1N1, and then I'm just going to make a label for GPT because we want a GPT partition, and it will say something about that. That's fine, not a problem. What we're now going to do is basically partition this drive with an ext4 partition. So similar command, parted a option dev, and it's going to be as before, so NVMe 1N1, and we're going to then do make partition primary ext4, and then it's going to be 0% to 100%, which is basically saying we're going to use all of the available partitionable space. That was good. So let's, oh yeah, that should be fine. Let's run that. And it says about you may need to update FS tab, and that's too if we want to auto mount. So absolutely, we probably would do that if that's what we need. So what we're going to do now is basically just sort the file system out. So make sure it's ext4 and give it a name. So again, it's going to be NVMe 1N1 and dev no, that's what we want that is to be the name I want to give it. So this will be 500 NVMe, for example. Then it'll be dev NVMe 1 N1 yes. Ignore me with the double one. That was just because I've already got a partition, so it's there. Okay, so what I want to do is just make a directory in there. So what we're going to do here is just make dir p, we'll call it mount, and we'll call it pm data. That's really what I'm going to use it for. Path. That's done, and then the final part is to basically to add a bit in there to make it auto mount. So what we will do, we're just going to add a line. So let's go into nano ECT. It's not ETC, it's ETC. Yeah, it's ETC. FS tab. And we'll add the following line at the bottom. And if you've ever followed my other videos, particularly on Jellyfin, you'd have seen me do the FS tab stuff before. Equals 500 NVMe. Helps if you use the correct spelling. Then the mount point, which was into EM data. ext4 defaults 0 and 2, and we should be able to save that. Now to check that's worked, the simplest way to test it is just do the following, and that should automatically mount it. The other way to do it would be just to restart the system, but yeah, that's where we are. So if we now go into storage on Proxmox, so here, and then click add and directory, I should be able to add in that mount point. So if I type in VM data, and we'll call it 500 NVMe, and then we can add what options we want this to be able to take. So we'll take it, we'll let it have those kind of things. I don't need it to have anything else. Why doesn't it like that? Probably doesn't like beginning with one. And then I can share it for one. I'm not going to at the moment. I'll just click add. And that should be there. So if we now go into here and go summary, we can see we've got an available of 491 gig, which is good. Out of the 500, that's what you'd expect to see. So that's how you would mount a drive in Proxmox using the CLI. I tend to find it's easier that way. You can do it different ways, so you can go in and do it with the actual disk manager side. You can go in, wipe a disk, initialize a disk, then add it that way. However, you kind of lose some of the simple functionality you might want to play around with. Hi, and hopefully you found that video useful. Today we've covered off how to add storage into the Proxmox hypervisor for use for virtual machines and or containers. Now there are different ways you can do this. This isn't by far the only way. We've covered off how to do it in the CLI. You can certainly set up ZFS pools using Proxmox if you haven't got a hardware RAID. What you'll need then is something that's capable of passing through stuff in HBA mode, or IT mode as it's more regularly called these days. And then you can set up ZFS pools. Or, my personal favourite way of doing it is to basically pass through devices through to TrueNAS, whether it be via a SAS card, have TrueNAS then set up a ZFS pool, and then pass through pools or data sets as an NFS share. So there are different ways to do it. I've covered off some of those in other videos, or I will do if I haven't in the near distant future. If you've liked today's video, please hit the like and subscribe because it helps me out, and I will see you next time.